Good morning. I hope everybody did really well at the tables last night and even better at the bar. We are here this morning to talk about Google Analytics. So for a while, take off your gambling hat, your drinking hat, and whatever other hats you might be wearing, and let's rock and roll about how to make money with Google Analytics. My name is Josh Ziering, and I'm here to nerd out with you this morning. So let's get excited and figure out what we're doing. I own a small company called Full Speed SEO, and it's a small consultancy out of Arizona, and I do analytics for my customers as a value add. I got into SEO by sharing a last name with somebody who was on TV for a few years. So when you typed my name into Google, you would get a combination of Ian Ziering, Nikki Ziering, and Joshua Hartnett. Now, I don't mind the comparison to Joshua Hartnett. I find that very flattering from Google. But unfortunately, when I can't find my own blog at 16 years old, I decided, this is crap, I'm going to fix this. How do I do that? So I started teaching myself SEO. I'm a huge nerd, probably the biggest nerd you've ever met, and an over-enthusiastic speaker. So you can look forward to a lot of shouting, yelling, and crazy hand movements. The reason that I like analytics so much is that it keeps me honest, and it keeps my clients honest. When I show them a direct correlation to a return on investment, it makes it very difficult for them to say, you know, we just don't have room in the budget next quarter for SEO, or, you know, we really liked your service, but unfortunately it's not working for us. When you show people dollar signs, it really helps to make sure that you continue to have a job. Because after all, the only reason you have a job is to make somebody else money. So I keep this as a value add for my clients, and I'm going to share some of the things that I do for them for you today so that you can demonstrate similar things. Why do I use analytics? Why do I use Google Analytics? Well, it's based off some awesome software called Urchin. I don't know if you know the story behind Google Analytics, but there was this awesome company that does this software, and they've been charging a ton of money for it, like $50,000. It was the kind of thing that if you did not have a fortune and a number associated with your name and your company, you generally could not afford Urchin. You're not going to be putting it on your small affiliate site where you're making, you know, $30, $40, $50 a day, because at $50,000, that's a lot of acai berries. So it's free now. Google bought up this company and decided to give away this technology. It's insanely powerful. It's more powerful than most people know. It's not a hit counter. It is a full package that is unbelievably and unparalleled, in my opinion. It's remotely hosted. You don't have to do anything and set up your server or configure your log files or worry about where did this data go? It's all handled by Google, and it has really, really excellent reliability. I think there was only a couple hours last year, all last year, where you could not access your analytics data. And finally, it keeps me employed. I love being able to show people, look, here's what we did, here's how it worked, and here's how much money it made you. So who shouldn't use Google Analytics? Well, if you're doing anything really dirty, it's probably not a good idea to invite Google into the backdoor, the cloaking dark areas of your site and say, hey, come on in, no problem, check out this stuff I'm doing. Google says that they're not using any of the factors from Google Analytics as a ranking indicator, but that said, you probably wouldn't invite the police into your home if you had a drug lab in there. So in that respect, if you're doing anything not by the book, definitely consider another solution. And Flash sites. If you're using Flash, it means you have multiple pages, but as far as Google Analytics is concerned, there's only one page. So you'll get a lot of data, but none of it will be statistically relevant, because even though the person went to 7 of your pages, it looks like they only went to 1. So in that regard, if you're doing an entirely Flash site, stay clear of Google Analytics, and maybe stay clear of Flash, get a real website, and then come back to Google Analytics. So what will I cover today? I want to talk about, are you even ready for analytics? A lot of people say, oh yeah, stick it on there, let's go, let's get it done. There's a lot of that gung-ho attitude, and sometimes being prepared is way more valuable than just getting it on there. Abe Lincoln says, if I had 8 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. This is a prime example of that. So we're going to talk about how do you cut up your site for value? What are we going to be analyzing? So we're going to talk about the different ways that we can find value in your site. We're going to go over some basic analytic concepts that are often misunderstood, and we're going to talk about some advanced concepts that are really going to help you make more money or show people that you are making them more money. And at the end, if we have time, I will do site reviews for those brave enough. So if you feel like your site is ready to rock and roll with some analytics and you want to say, hey, where can I integrate this? I would be happy to give you suggestions if you're willing to share it with the rest of the room and potentially the rest of the world, because who knows where this stuff's going to end up. So Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, says, if we understand the mechanism and motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it. This is terrifying. This is a terrifying notion, but it's important that we understand that we are not looking to see what Aunt Susie is doing on the computer. We're not concerned with any one person. There is huge privacy issues here, but all we are concerned with is the group, the mass, the people who are doing what we want them to do. So in that regard, we're not looking to do things to individual people. We are strictly trying to control the masses. And if you have a website with a lot of traffic, you know exactly what I mean. So are you ready? Are you ready for Google Analytics? Your page needs to have a clear purpose. Every page on your website needs to have a clear purpose. If you are installing analytics on your site without a purpose on every page that you want to make money from, you're wasting your time. You got to bulk up and get ready. You may have to revisit things, you may have to add copy, you may have to add calls to action. But it is imperative that you have a goal on every page. Building traffic is not a goal. While I appreciate the fluffy nature of saying, well, we're not really marketing yet, we're building traffic, or people that tell me that their company's in stealth mode and say, well, we don't really want to be found yet, or any of those other colloquialisms that people love to hide behind. Look, that's respectable, and I think that's awesome. It's not a goal. Get over it. So we're going to find ways today to make sure that we have clear directives for our visitors. Your homepage, and every page you can expect someone to land on from Google, PPC, or any other traffic source needs to have a call to action. Deliver content, and with that content, deliver a directive. Does everybody in here know what a call to action is? If you don't, maybe throw a hand up or nudge the guy next to you to throw a hand up so you're not embarrassed. Okay, cool. Everybody knows what a call to action is. Awesome. So assign a value, a monetary value, money, dollars, to every possible call to action. Even if you don't think you can, you can. When I talk to my clients, one of the big things they say to me is, well, Josh, we like to collect email addresses, but we can't assign a value to email addresses. BS. You can assign a value to email addresses. You can assign a value to Twitter followers, Facebook followers, likes. Any of these things you can assign a clear and definable monetary value to. There's some simple math that I'm going to show you in the next slide. I'm not really a math guy, so I double-checked this about 60 times, but it still could be wrong, so just FYI. But this is the gist of it. Okay, you have a huge email list. You rock it. You have some customers. They buy things from you. They're excited about your product. And every time you send a targeted, well-focused, well-written email blast with a directive and a call to action inside of it, you convert at 3%. 3 out of every 100 people buy something from you. Their average order, $200. Awesome. That's rocking. That's a good thing. Well, if we extrapolate that, we know then that each email address you have is worth about $6. The list will continue to grow, and this number might change, but that doesn't matter, because we now have a clear and defined value for every single email address we collect. Even though that specific person, even though Aunt Susie at hotmail.com may not spend $6 with you, in aggregate, right, the masses is what we're talking about, in aggregate, she is worth that much to you. So it's imperative that for every one of these things, you should have a clear and defined value. Now, when I explain this to my clients in the meetings, the people that get the most worried are the social media people. You can see them kind of like loosening their collars a little bit, because suddenly it's not just about followers. Suddenly there's accountability here. Suddenly you know how much money everybody is going to be making. So every follower you add has a value associated with it. And that makes the outrageous inflated prices that they often charge not as easily justifiable. So usually, with about half my clients, once I get to here, the people that do social media and branding and all of those things that don't really have a lot of accountability usually start whispering into their ear like, you know, this SEO stuff, we don't really know. So this is an important piece of math to keep in mind. So the pitfalls of Google Analytics are also something you should consider before you install it. It's not perfect. There's no way you're going to be able to capture everybody. Google Analytics uses JavaScript and a set of cookies to do its magic. So what you're going to find is really nerdy people who do text-based browsing in Linux with a browser called Lynx and sit there in their basement with a tinfoil hat on, denying every cookie known to man. These are people who you are not going to be able to capture their user data from with Google Analytics. It doesn't matter, though. We are concerned about the masses. So unfortunately, Poindexter here, as valuable as he is to us, we won't be able to see what he is doing. And this gentleman in the tinfoil hat, I don't know what he's doing, but I respect what he's all about. So there's a lot of things that are going to be coming down the pipeline as other people realize the power of what we can do on the internet with our websites. Google is attempting to self-regulate and say, you can opt out of analytics. Most people don't even know what analytics is. We're finally at a point now where people are like, oh yeah, I can buy things online, no problem. I put in my credit card. Well, as the general population catches up to the skills and capabilities that we have and becomes aware of them, there's probably going to be backlash. So it looks like the government, and specifically the US government, is going to be regulating what you can and can't glean from your website data. The other thing that's really important to note is Google Analytics is not good for intraday data. You're looking at time, you're looking at aggregate, you're not looking for, in the last hour we got 6 leads. There are some really great pieces of information and really great things you can learn from that, but Google Analytics is not the right software. They process the information that you give them about once every 3 hours. So even though you just hit the front page of Dig and you log into your analytics account and you see that you've gotten 25 people today, that's not accurate. So keep that in mind when you're working with Google Analytics. So what is the basic terms here that we have? You need to think about every piece of data inside of Google Analytics as a page view. It is the currency of Google Analytics. Think about it as the single thing that is transparent throughout the whole process. The page view inside of it carries all the other data. And again, processed every few hours. So every time you do something in Google Analytics, it's a page view, and then your state, your IP address, your goals, your pages visited, all inside the page view. Oh, wow. All right, that's a little compressed. So here we have some site usage statistics. Visits are unique visitors. Page views are, like I said, every time you go to a page, it's a page view. You can set page views to occur even if one has not happened, but that's a little bit advanced and just beyond the scope of what I'm talking about right now. Pages per visit, obviously, if you go to a site and you leave, there will be a number of pages. That's a number that you want to have pretty high. It's a great signal of user engagement. Bounce rate is the number of people who went to one page, who landed on a page, and left. That's a number that you want to decrease as much as possible. And average time on site is just how long they spent on your site. So if they land on a page and your average time on site is 6 minutes, but your bounce rate is 89%, what do you have on that page? You probably should check it out. But where's the really juicy stuff? Where's the stuff that's going to make us money? Everybody logs in every day to Google Analytics. Even if you've never used it before and you have no idea what it is, you log in and you say, oh, 36 visitors today, nice. And they have that pretty little graph. Honestly, there's no better way to waste time on a little bit of a slow day than to sit there and look at those graphs in Google Analytics. It is awesome. But if you're really trying to do some work, we're going to get into that in a second here. Also a really good way to look busy. Traffic sources. So this is arguably one of the most valuable parts of Google Analytics. It's under traffic sources and keywords on the left-hand side. This is an area where you probably should be every couple days, at least. This is a friend of mine who has very nicely allowed me to use her data to show to you today. She's a wedding coordinator, planner. I'm not sure what her exact title is, but she represents venues in downtown Phoenix. And so we've ranked her website for downtown Phoenix venues, and we can tell how relevant every visitor is from that keyword. So let's extrapolate a little bit here. Downtown Phoenix venues received 131 visits. The average person, and this is all from Google, by the way, the average person went to 4 different pages and spent an average of 2.5 minutes on her site. Sure, there were people that spent a minute and said, wow, I would not want to get married here, this is depressing. But there were other people that said, sure, I'm going to spend 6 minutes on here, and this looks awesome, honey, come look at this. 18% were new visits. So we know that a lot of people are returning. This is not a one-shot deal. This is a long sale where you take that picture in front of the altar is a big deal. And finally, her bounce rate was about 45%. So in this regard, if you have a ranking, if you're paying somebody to rank you, you can now see how effective that is. So if I ranked her for Scottsdale, one of our Phoenix suburbs, Scottsdale venues, and she doesn't represent any Scottsdale venues, we're going to see low pages per visit, low time on site, and high bounce rate. So looking at these, you can tell how effective your SEO campaigns are and how well you're doing organically. You can also find some really awesome gems in here. Maybe this Orpheum Penthouse, wow, check that out. 9 pages per visit, maybe that deserves a better page or more copy or a better call to action or its own section. These are the things that you can get from just the keywords. We haven't even begun to dissect them. But again, the money in Google Analytics is in segmentation. Being able to break this up and show a direct correlation to return on investment is awesome. Now, there's no return on investment here yet. We're just simply looking at, do our rankings foster user engagement? And based on this, they absolutely do. Low bounce rates, high page per visit, and a relatively high time on site. You need to consider that when you go to a site from Google and you don't like it, how long do you really spend there? If it's not what you're looking for, what is it? Boom, you're gone. You're gone in 10 seconds, less. So, pro tip. Traffic sources, and this is the segmentation by browser. So at the top of all of these pieces of information, it's kind of a ubiquitous layout in Google Analytics. So at the top, you segment by keyword, that's already put in for you because you hit traffic sources keyword. You can segment by browser. And so what I look for when I do a site audit or a site review for a client is I say, okay, cool, this person has a pretty good deal, what's going on? Let's look at their main keywords and let's make sure that the bounce rate is pretty close amongst all 3 browsers. You can do this with search engines. You can do this with area, geographic area. Basically any conceivable metric you can segment. But the reason that I like to look at browsers is, for example, this wedding planner loves to go off the reservation and just start making all kinds of crazy changes to her site. And it's awesome, but on the other hand, she messes things up sometimes because she doesn't understand the problems with CSS and other nuances of web design. So what works in Firefox is not going to work in Internet Explorer. So in that regard, I keep an eye on what's happening by making sure the bounce rate is the same. So if Firefox has a bounce rate that is triple what Internet Explorer is, something's wrong in Firefox. And then you can do this with location too. So if you find that you have a bounce rate that is double for Missouri than it is for Montana, you probably should look at what you're targeting and what's on your page. So you can segment by location, operating system, basically anything. There's 20 or 30 different options. And again, the money is in segmentation. And with the traffic sources, yeah, you can do it by keyword, but you can also do it by traffic source like PPC, Facebook, any of the other traffic sources that you're running. You just won't get down to the keyword unless you use keywords. Like Facebook doesn't have keywords. But you can see from Facebook that people are converting better in a geo-targeted area. So let's talk about in my opinion, the most valuable thing about Google Analytics. It's called goals. If you don't have goals on your website, you are leaving money on the table, period. How many people have goals on their site in here? Okay, so about 1/4 of the people here have goals on their site. Goals are what we're looking for. A goal can be anything. It can be filling out a contact form. A goal can be going to a thank you page at the end of a checkout process for your e-commerce site. A goal can be when that pixel fires and you make that $6 from that dating lead. Whatever it is, you can put a goal on it. It doesn't matter if it's Ajax, it doesn't matter if it's a picture. You can set goals for time on site, a goal to foster user engagement. You can have up to 20 goals in each profile. So what I really recommend doing is when you start playing with this stuff, make a new profile. It's really easy. You'll see a plus sign at the top right. It says add new profile. You can go in there and have a heyday with the goals and the profiles and all this other stuff. And what happens is if you mess up or you start collecting data that is messed up by what you're setting up here, you are not going to mess up the original pristine data that you have in your other profile. So consider that. And the goal is done by page view. That's a really important notion to understand here. So we want to bring a user to a specific page, a thank you page, a thank you for your email page, a form page. And what we can do is set up funnels so that we can say, awesome, here's the goal. The goal is getting somebody's email address. 70 people went to our form, and then 30 of them completed our goal. What's wrong with our form? And it will tell you those metrics. It is really versatile. You can even do it on any of this stuff. So whether it's clicking on a picture for a bigger view, and you want to decide if that's something you want to add to your site, or some kind of JavaScript option where you can put a magnifying glass and it automatically makes the picture bigger with Ajax, you can find this stuff out by using goals. So goals are to get people somewhere. They're not for generic information. We don't want to extrapolate information like, wow, is it more popular to have a red button or a blue button? No, we want to bring somebody somewhere. So in that regard, you generally want to use goals to bring people somewhere. Goals come with funnels. You don't have to use them, but if there's no funnel, generally it's not worthy of a goal. Even if it's just your home page and then the contact form, generally set up the goals so that you have a funnel so you can see if there are any particularly high friction points on your site. With goals come further segmentation. So you can see performance rather than metrics. So we can segment now not just by the Google keyword, we can look and see what's happening with different search engines, what's happening with different traffic sources. So this is from one of my clients. They sell tiny earbud covers. And so the big thing for him was, where are my sales coming from? And he's gotten reviews on YouTube, reviews on Gizmodo. He's gotten all these high-dollar people to review his product and write about it, and it's cost him a ton of money. At the end, we had to decide, where are you really selling these things, dude? So I talked to him. I said, all right, I have some bad news for you. All this other promotion you're doing doesn't even stack up to Google. So from Google, 121 people purchased this product in the time frame I set here, and 39 people just went right to your website. Yahoo and Bing accounted for not even 10% of Google's total sales, and all this other stuff you're doing on the forums and on YouTube and on Gizmodo is almost insignificant, almost statistically insignificant to how well you are doing with organic search. So this was a huge win for him and helped him see that, yes, he is making money from SEO, and yes, he is making sales directly from Google, Yahoo, and Bing. So we can do even more segmentation. If we were to click in that last screen, let's blast back here for a second. So if we click Google, we now can see by keyword how it converts. So his brand is called Breppies. So we can take those out right away because he's doing brand management. He wants to build his brand. That's awesome. Unfortunately, I am not responsible for having his brand rank #1 in Google. Google loves that. His domain name is breppies.com. So in that regard, awesome. We can take those out. I was not responsible for those sales. Earbud covers received 25% of the sales from Google. That was me. I ranked that. So this way I can say, hey, this was the right keyword, you're converting really highly, and people are coming here and they're finding what they want and they are going to your thank you page because they are buying your product. Again, you can see there are several keywords here that include his brand name, but beyond that, we start to see some long tail keywords, iPod earbud covers, earbud cover, etc., on down the line. So the money is in segmentation. By segmenting, you know what's performing, you know what's not performing, you know exactly where your cash cow is. If you find that Google converts 20 times better than Yahoo, might make sense to spend some money on Google. If you know that Yahoo is converting really well, wow, man, it would be better to take that ranking from #4 to #1 for that keyword that converts so well. So this way you can make informed decisions rather than, well, we're #4 on Yahoo and we're getting some sales, I guess it works. This way you can have direct accountability for each and every keyword. Also, you're also going to find new long tail keywords that maybe you didn't know about. Maybe somebody found your site by saying, iPod earphones hurt because they hurt their ears. And they say, wow, this is an awesome product. Man, it would be really great to rank for that or to make a post about that on your website so that you can draw those people in. You can compare investment versus return on investment. It's very easy to see that if you are spending money on SEO, on social media, on PPC, you then know where that money is going and how it's coming back to you. You can use it then to create an arbitrage and spend money on things that work instead of things that don't work. And the previous screenshots, by the way, were custom filtering, so you would need to make a report for that, but it's in the metrics, it's very easy to do, and it's something that I will outline later. And if I don't, make sure you ask me a question. Cool. Don't go crazy with the goals. Sometimes they aren't good everywhere. Let's see an example. This is a guy who hit me up. He says, hey, I want to do some things on my site. I have a really awesome quote site. It was really cool. It's trying to go viral. He's working really hard on that. And it's called, I won't say the name, but it involves Facebook likes, and that's a really big deal. Everybody wants to hit like button and, oh, cool, now this shows up on my profile with something really prolific from Michael Jordan in 1993. So let's see an example. Popular quotes. So despite trying to target Facebook really, really extensively, this gentleman felt that Twitter was more important to place on the bottom left-hand corner. In my opinion, that was the prime real estate area. Now, goals are not going to work here because we're not trying to divert people to Facebook. We're just trying to see where they're going. Is Twitter right there? Is stumble upon important enough to put in the middle right under the quote? No, absolutely not. But we can't make decisions based on my conjecture. We have to make decisions based on data. So I said, dude, you should move this like button over there, and we should use something called, it's called event tracking. And event tracking is what you would do instead of a goal. Event tracking is the notion that you are going to just find out generic information. We don't want to know where they're going. We just want to know where they're clicking. And we want to know that Facebook has more clicks than any other option on this page. And then what's the second one? Well, I hope it would be Twitter, but it could be stumble upon. You never know. So using that information, we are going to figure out what is the best place to put this. What is the most important item here? Ultimately, he didn't really end up listening to me and said, I don't know, something about you have no idea about social media. So in the end, I don't really know how it turned out, but that's the way to handle that. So what are people sharing most? That's what we're trying to find out. It doesn't meet our litmus test of bringing somebody somewhere. There's no action here. It's really just which one of these buttons is the most popular. And the aim is button placement. It's really important to have a goal in mind. And again, this is a generic goal, not a Google Analytics goal. You want to have a goal, you want to have a question, and you want to have the data to answer it. Those are the killer three that we want to have. So the event tracking is really where we're going to find value here. It's great for if you have video on your website and you want to know how many people are clicking the pause button, you'd set up event tracking to show that. If you have a share button on your website and you want to know how many people are sharing your content or clicking on it, versus the number of retweets that you receive, for example, then again, event tracking is something that you want to do that with. It's the same, it's just a piece of JavaScript that you put into a link, so it's not hard to install. It takes about 5-10 minutes for the average person to say, okay, where's the event tracking code I need? There it is, put it in. It does have similar metrics to goals, which is really important. So if you want to know that people from Omaha, Nebraska are much more likely to hit the like button than from another place, you can find that out using event tracking. But generally, it's not as robust. You're not going to get the funnels. You're not going to see where people are leaving your funnel. It's much better to use event tracking for generic information rather than funnel type activities. So again, going back, our litmus test is, do we have a funnel? Is it worth a goal? Because we only have 20 goals to use. So it's much better to put in event tracking when it's appropriate. And if you're not sure, stick with event tracking. If you need more information, make it a goal. Pro tips. So, does anybody here have really big content sites? Like really big, 1,000 pages, 10,000 pages, 100,000 pages? All right, yeah, there's some people in the room. So you're going to find that there are the top landing pages. It's called top content. And this is the content that receives the most page views. You're going to want to go ahead. It's under content on the left, and it's called top content. And it's going to show you by URL the statistics for each one of those pages. What I like to do when I'm doing a site audit is I will immediately blast into here, and I'll say, cool, you have some really high traffic pages. Why don't they convert, or why do they have such a high bounce rate? So we can see here that this is my personal site, that I wrote an article about full-scale airplanes, received almost 900 page views, 800 unique ones. The average person spent 4.5 minutes, or 5 minutes on the site, but there was a 91% bounce rate. What is going on with that page? And this particular one was I was writing about an RC helicopter, and they're all looking for this Parrot AR drone that flies with the iPhone, and I had a similar project about a year before. So they click on it, they're like, what is this? This is not what I want, and they blast out. But the person that does stay there spends a lot of time. So this is a way you can find sticky parts of your site, and when you combine this with goal tracking and you see, wow, all these people come to this site, but almost none of them convert from this page, what is the problem here? Do we have bad copy, bad placement, bad call to action? So this is the same concept, but instead it's using landing pages. And here we can see different bounce rates for where people land on the page from, I think this one is encompassing all the search engines. No, it's everything. This is everything. Direct traffic, search engines, PPC. So we can see when people land on these pages, this is the first site they go to, why is page 1, the index page, bouncing at 78% and page 7 bouncing at 65%? That's a pretty stark difference. So it's critical that you identify these areas and you fix them. Now, fixing them, that's an entirely different issue. How do you fix them? Well, you have to try stuff. Luckily, you have data, and you can make decisions based on data, but sometimes you just have to try making changes, and you have to look at what people are searching for. It's really, really important to use the annotations in Google Analytics. So what you can do is you see problems, you make a change. An annotation is a note that you can put in the graph, and so you'd hit Add Annotation, and it's going to put a little note on that day, January 11th, that we changed the color of the button today. Now you know that you can compare last week to this week and see, wow, bounce rate's down 10%, goals are up 10%. Whatever the metric is, you can see if what you do is working. So annotations are a really, really important part of this, and they're right on the home page. You can't miss them. So in my opinion, if people are going to your site and they are using the search button, they're not finding what they're looking for via your navigation. So as a rule, I don't like to see a lot of search happening, but if it is happening, you finally now have a chance to reclaim these people and help them find what they're looking for. So keep that in mind when you're designing your search pages and your search landing pages, but you can add into Google Analytics a way to track the search. It's called site search, that's the name of the function, and you just put in the variable that your website uses. If you use WordPress, I imagine a lot of people in here do, I know I do, I have 40 WordPress installations. You just put in S as the variable that uses for search, and then Google Analytics will track what it is that people are searching for on your site and the statistics that they do after they search. This is a great way to find out where your site is deficient. I have a site about vintage jeans, and so people search for different items. This day here on this slide, it was Levi capital E, which is the indication of a vintage jean from a certain time on the tag. And so clearly I was not making it apparent enough that these jeans are from a certain time. So this is a great signal to me that I am failing as a webmaster to deliver what people are looking for. And it's a great way to find people that are landing on your site and giving it the second chance. Instead of hitting the back button, they're going to the search box and saying, well, I hope this person can help me because it seems like they have what I want. This is a great place to find keywords and sections of your site that maybe you're underexploiting that people are looking for. So there are some great metrics associated with this. So you'll find that how many people leave after they search. It's called search exits. Search refinements. How many people did a search and said, no, this is not what I want, and went back. And time after search, how long they stuck around. So again, this is super valuable because you're segmenting. And in this way, you're really reaching out to individual people. If you see that you have a search result that is showing up in aggregate a lot, if 100 people search for Levi capital E, and the leave after search rate was really, really high, I would know that I am failing to deliver these people their really cool vintage jeans. So use annotations. These are some final thoughts, some parting ideas here. Use annotations to mark time. Make a new profile when you're screwing around with anything. This way you can be emboldened to try new things that you may not have before, especially if you work with a company and it's not your data specifically, where other people are going to have to look at this and you are responsible for the results. Make a new profile. Really important. Using analytics is a really profitable endeavor if you use it actively. If you put the tracking code at the bottom of every single one of your pages and then you do nothing with it, it will not help you. Sure, you'll collect all this data, but if you don't have goals, if you don't have site search, if you don't have event tracking, then you are not doing anything. It's just a glorified hit counter, and it's absolutely worthless. So understanding how people use your site and what they use it for is a really lucrative notion. It's important that you utilize the awesome tools that Google Analytics now gives to you for free, because prior to this, you would have had to pay $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for a license to Urchin to be able to get this capability. So now even your site that gets 10 visits a day can have the same analytics that huge sites have. The S&P 500, those sort of sites. People with large amounts of money can use the same tracking. You can use the same tracking as them. Cool. Well, let's rock on. I feel like we're going to have some questions. Usually do. So shout your question to me. I'm going to repeat it so everybody can hear it. And sure, yes.
With your site search and getting it to work on a WordPress site, that's different from getting it to work on a PHP site. So will they integrate that with your own search box?
So the question is, using WordPress to site search versus using a generic PHP to site search, will it work? Will it integrate, right? So what you need to find out is your search variable. 9 times out of 10, the search is passed what we call via the get method, and that's in the URL bar of the browser. So oftentimes what I do, and if it's a weird platform for me, if it's Drupal or something I'm not really that familiar with, I will just do a search, and it'll usually say Q equals, S equals, L equals, whatever it is. There's usually a word or a couple letters that equal something, and then there's your search term, Levi's Big E jeans. And so then I know it's L or S, and I just put that into Google Analytics. It might be one of the things that you need to ping your programmer about, but certainly he can help you, and it will work with other platforms besides WordPress. Yes?
For an affiliate site, the goal is often to have the user click out of the site to purchase. What are your recommendations for tracking that, and is that considered a bounce if they click out very quickly?
Okay, so the question is, when you have an affiliate site, oftentimes the goal is not to have them to go anywhere on your site, but to go out to the merchant. What you would do is you create a page, it's called a virtual page view, and this is what you do with goals. You create a virtual page view. So it will increase your page view count, but it's not a real page view. It's not actually a place where they're going. And so you preface it with, you say, okay, when someone clicks on this link, we're going to create a pretend page view. For my purposes, I always preface them with outbound or VPV, which means virtual page view, so that I know when I'm looking at this data, these are not real views on my site. And what you'll do then is set that as a goal. So the goal is for people to go to outbound/shoes if you have a shoe website. And then that way you'll know where people are going from and where they're going to using that goal. So you'll get all the same data. You'll know which keywords are converting on Google. You know which keywords are converting from PPC. You'll know exactly where they're coming from. But instead of going to your site, they'll be going to the affiliate site. And it's called virtual page view, and it's a goal. It's in your HTML. So what you're going to do is you'll put in a small piece of JavaScript in your affiliate link. So at the end of the link, href equals, here's your URL, end quote, and then you'll put in this tiny piece of JavaScript that says, hey, when someone clicks on this, fire a pretend page view. And that page view will be your goal. More questions? Yes, sir.
I didn't see any slides in the presentation about how to measure when you're managing different campaigns. Like, for example,
So the question is, he wanted to see more about managing different campaigns, right? With AdWords versus anything else. Okay. So the great thing about Google Analytics is that it's really not picky about the data that you feed it. You can feed it from these little tiny site network, PPV networks. It could be Facebook. What you're going to use is a tool called the Google Analytics URL generator. And so you can even put this in your emails. You can say the campaign is called email 1/1/11/2011. And so what happens is it generates this URL for you to any page you want on your site. And at the end, it tacks on all this information. What the campaign is, you can make a custom campaign name. What's happening with what you would call the source. And if you have keywords, you can include keywords as well. And so the keyword just might be, you know, email 1 or segment 1 or previous customers, whatever that might be. And from there, you simply use that link, and Google will automatically eat up that data as soon as they receive a view from that URL. So really, campaigns are irrelevant. You can make a campaign out of anything, and that's part of the power here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
More questions? Yes.
Is there a way to tell how many people click on certain images on your page?
Okay, so is it certain images or is it any image? Any product image. So the question is there a way to figure out how many people are clicking on the image on your page, right? Any image on your page, product images. This is a great opportunity to use event tracking. And so what you would do is in every image on your page, it's a product image, put the small piece of JavaScript event tracking code, and you won't be able to track specific images unless you spend some time doing that. But what I would say is do it all at once first, all the same piece of code. And then you'll know, wow, okay, I am getting a lot of clicks on the images or I am not. If you are not getting a lot of clicks, you know people don't really care. If you are getting a lot of clicks, maybe you should then figure out which product is not clear enough and just put a bigger image of that product in there. Does that answer your question?
Well, where do you get the JavaScript code?
So in the Google Analytics help file, they have a whole help site. It's called event tracking, and they actually will give you the example. You can copy and paste it. No crazy technical stuff needed. In the back?
Does Google, in Google Analytics, does it allow you to set a time to what the bounce rate is, or were you doing the way to do that through the event tracking?
So the question is, does Google allow you to change what the custom bounce rate is? So I will be completely honest with you, I'm unfamiliar with if you can do this or not. I think you can. I've read that you can change what you consider a bounce. I know that it's somewhere deep in the configuration. It's probably a couple pages deep, but you can do it, I'm pretty sure, but I don't want to go 100% and lie to you. But I will actually, hit me up afterwards, we'll find out.
There was some feedback muttering here, and it might be in custom reports.
It might be in custom reports for you to change what a bounce is classified as.
Okay, that's what
Sir?
You indicated to stick it up
Oh.
on the page and somebody else and said put it at the front of the page to make a difference.
Oh, the question is putting it at the bottom of the page versus putting it at the top of the page. I've been doing Google Analytics for a really long time, and it's always been at the bottom of the page. In April, Google made a fundamental change to the way they do their tracking code. They now use an asynchronous code that is a lot faster. Also, they did this kind of in tune with rolling out site performance ranking improvements. So your site will rank higher if you are faster than your competition. So at the same time they made this change, they realized that Google Analytics was slowing down a lot of websites. So yes, you should use the asynchronous tracking code where possible, and it goes just before the end of your header tag on any given page. And it's really a lot better. It's quite a bit faster. I just was programmed to say it's always in the footer. So old habits die hard.
all my traffic from Yahoo and Bing lists as organic. So am I missing something when I'm tracking PPC traffic?
So the question is, all his traffic from Yahoo and Bing lists as organic, and you're running PPC, right? Okay, and he's running a PPC campaign, but his paid clicks are coming into Google Analytics as, hey, these were free from the search engine. So what you should do to fix that is use the Google Analytics URL creator and make a custom URL for your PPC campaigns. And that way you can set even down to the campaign level or the ad group level, and you can get really granular. And that should fix that. Okay, so the question is, can Google Analytics differentiate between two pages that are being split tested, right? Yes, it can. What I would do is, are you doing two different URLs? One URL, two different pages. I don't know how I would implement that. Hit me up afterwards. We'll kind of brainstorm it for a second. What my immediate instinct is to say you should do two separate pages with two separate URLs. For SEO reasons, that may not be an option for you, but I think we can come up with something. We'll figure it out. More questions? Site reviews? Anybody? Let's get crazy.
I know this presentation is about Google Analytics, but for like a journalist, one source is not a source. You can have single or multiple sources. What do you recommend in using another analytics program without losing track of what you actually want to know?
Okay, so the question is, a journalist can't use a single source. You can't say that this data came from Google Analytics. So the question is, how do I set up something parallel to Google Analytics to collect data as a second source to verify, right? Oh, that's an excellent question. I think the way that I would approach it is, instead of using, I would continue to use Google Analytics because it's my favorite. I really like it. On the side of that, you could use something called AW Stats. It's free, it's open source, and it's available in most cPanels, which is pretty ubiquitous on a lot of web servers. It will give you a much more raw set of data where it's not going to filter out things like robots and all kinds of stuff, but it works really well, and it's a good alternative to Google Analytics. In my opinion, it's not as powerful, but it would work great as a second source to verify, wow, this site did accomplish this yesterday. AW Stats is what it's called. And there's a couple other ones available for free in cPanel that are open source, but they are more along the lines of just kind of traffic statistics. They don't have some of the really advanced granular things that I like about Google Analytics. More questions? Sir?
What are your thoughts on how average page views or bounce rate would affect the SEO ranking of the site?
So the question is, how do I think average page views or bounce rate will affect SEO rankings? You don't need to have Google Analytics on your site for Google to know that your page has a high bounce rate. They simply know that if you click out from their search engine result page and then you return a short time later, guess what? Your page didn't stick. So whether you're giving it to them in Google Analytics or not, they're going to know. And I think that site performance is going to be a more and more important factor going forward. So maintaining a low bounce rate is great even outside of Google. Let's pretend Google doesn't exist, and it's honestly a world I would love to be in. But let's pretend it doesn't exist and that we don't, all we care about is the bounce rate. We want our users to come to the page and stay there. So having a low bounce rate, yes, I think it will help SEO in the future, but outside of SEO, it's something you want anyway. So either way, it's a win, even if they don't start doing really intense site performance ranking algorithm changes. In the back.
What is a low bounce rate? And how come, I've got cookie in Google, and get cookie shows lower bounce rates than Google does.
So the question is, what is a low bounce rate? And you have conflicting data from another platform? That could be any number of things. Get clicky, I think, is also JavaScript based, is it? Okay. So there's two different bounce rates showing up. How drastically different are they?
One is like, can be as low as 20, and the other can be like 70. It's like, I'm thinking that maybe get cookie is giving a smaller amount of time on the site, so maybe it's
Well, obviously that's a great point. So you want to see, how does Google define a bounce rate and how does get clicky define a bounce rate? And then on top of that, you would also probably want to check to see how long does get clicky take to load versus Google Analytics take to load. Maybe one of them's loading really fast and catching more bounces, then get clicky is still firing up while people are hitting the back button, so it doesn't really count as a bounce rate, and it's giving you some really friendly looking data that is not that friendly. A low bounce rate is people coming to your site and going to more than one page, engaging with your site. You can also define it as time in Google Analytics, where it's based on a determined amount of time, but it's usually just one page, a bounce rate, a bounce, somebody going and leaving.
I know what that is like 20% good,
what is a low bounce rate? Oh, I'm sorry. The question is, what is a low bounce rate? What is considered low? It's morning time. I was playing blackjack last night. I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize. So a low bounce rate, I like to see a really good performing site under 50%. And my local clients, when they're really, really targeted and they're really kicking butt, getting a lot of leads, I like to see under 40%. High user engagement, high page count per visit. That's not unreasonable. But generally, anything under 60, 65%, I consider very tolerable for general internet stuff, general niches. Yes?
How do you find the benchmarking for bounce rate? Do you use benchmarking?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
In analytics, they have a benchmarking setting if you submit your data to be anonymously added to Google's graph. Do you personally use benchmarking, and do you get insights from it?
The question is, do I use benchmarking in Google Analytics, and do I get what from it? Insight from it. So.
My industry is education. I'm getting a bounce rate of, say, 35%, but everyone else in the industry are getting 60%. Must be doing very well.
Okay, so he's talking about, there's a feature in Google Analytics where you can be compared to sites that are semantically relevant to yours. I don't submit to that. I would kind of prefer to keep that data inside because I don't necessarily, if I'm the guy with a 60% bounce rate, I don't want to show my competitor, that you have a 30% bounce rate and you are kicking my butt. So I kind of like to play my cards close to the vest on that one. Other questions? Yes.
30% bounce rate is pretty darn good, right? Is that what you're
So generally speaking, if I had a 30% bounce rate, I'd be really happy, but I'd be a little bit skeptical. You got to be really targeted to get that 30% bounce rate. You must be doing something really right. Sir?
Why is the Google bot for images showing up as a browser session in analytics?
So the question is, why is Googlebot for images showing up as a browser session in analytics? I haven't seen that. Do you see that in your profile? Is your site almost all images?
A lot of images, but not all. I can show you after.
Hit me up afterwards. Let's look at that. I'd like to see that. Okay, you and then you. So, sir? You have that as well?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of images.
Okay. Okay, it may not be filtered out as a robot immediately. It's possible. I think Brent knows back there. We'll hit him up afterwards and see what he knows.
Is the data already filtered out robots that you look at, or do you have to run a special report?
So the question is, does the data filter out robots? I find that Google Analytics filters out almost all the robots because most of the good robots are going to identify. If you get somebody scraping your site with something they wrote one late night in PHP, that may count. But if it's not accessing the JavaScript, you're never going to know about it from Google Analytics. So if it's firing the JavaScript using some kind of Python, WebKit wannabe, sure, but other than that, you won't see it. Questions? All right, well, great. Hit me up afterwards. Hit me up on email. Follow me on Twitter. I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon on social media, but I tweet the occasional thing that's pretty relevant to the industry. Also, please fill out your evaluation cards. I read every one of them and try to be better for the next time. So my name is Joshua Ziering. My website's fullspeedseo.com. Thanks very much.